There was so much drama and intrigue in our last body language conversation that a follow-up video is in order. This story would not be complete without digging deeper into their shocked facial expressions, into why they got caught flat-footed in this ring of combat. Think Catch-22 as we go further down this rabbit hole. You see, after further evaluation, it became clear to me that the actors in this drama are not the brightest stars in the sky. Quite frankly, I think their light bulbs are burnt out. So my conclusion is, and it always has been for that matter, is that we are watching a Catch-22 play out. And that will be my focus of today's conversation. As you know, we used poker as a metaphor in our last video to help us understand the players/actors. Game theory is a must in understanding the Machiavellian ways of the powers that lurk in the shadows. But what if? What if the game is unwinnable? What if the actors are in a Catch-22 theater play? What would their faces look like? So that is what I will title this video. The name of this video will be Body Language of Actors Caught in the Catch-22 Web. The Clinton-Bush mysterious envelope. And that's been all the rage on the internet. People speculating what was in the envelope and why did only a few get the envelope. I think Hillary Clinton got one, Biden got one, Al Gore, and even VP Pence got one. And then later on, Jeb Bush was horrified when Laura Bush showed him something. So that's why we have to dig further. What are these clowns up to? What were they shocked to see? Well, like I said, I'm telling you that their house of cards is falling down. And they are in a situation where they don't know what to do. And why is that? It's because they've always had advisors and lobbyists telling them what to do and what to say. And think about who was the leader of their new world order. Old man Bush was the leader, one of the big honchos in this new world order. Think about it. Back when John F. Kennedy was taken out, that's when they had a complete and utter clamp on power. Old man Bush was in the CIA, and here he is. They're putting him in the ground, and all the actors are in shock. Look at the shock here. This is a telling part. We'll look at this. Look at Jeb Bush when he showed something. At this point, he looks pretty content. He even has a slight smile on his face. And then he has shown this, whatever that was, and the shock. Look at Laura Bush. Not only Jeb Bush, people may be missing that the air was taken out of Laura Bush's lungs. I mean, look at Laura Bush here. Look at her. Right here. Gasping for air. The air was knocked out of her. I don't know what they saw, but many people were intrigued and interested. And that's why we're talking about this. What was in the envelope? Why was Jeb Bush so shocked? And is it a coincidence that when all this was going down, that there's an investigation coming up on the Clinton Foundation? Some whistleblowers have come out. About the same time as this funeral was going on, whistleblowers were coming out with like 6,000 pages of documents exposing the Clinton Foundation. And if the Clinton Foundation goes down, a whole lot of people are going to go down. I'm here to tell you that yes, this house of cards is falling. They're in a Catch-22 position. Doesn't matter what they do. And now you have to think about, are we going to fight or are we going to flee? I say the only thing they can really do, the smart ones will flee. The smart ones all the ones who were involved in this Ponzi scheme. And I have to leave Donald Trump out of this Ponzi scheme because, quite frankly, when the housing bubble was being built up, and when the housing after the housing bubble bust, and then they gave all that money to the banks, and then the banks manipulated the interest rates to zero, Donald Trump was not involved in any of that. So even though I got to leave Donald Trump out of the Ponzi scheme because he was not a career politician. Matter of fact, that's why Donald Trump got elected, because he was not a career politician. People seem to keep on missing this. Donald Trump knocked out every career politician like dominoes. Not because Donald Trump was smarter than them. It's because Donald Trump was the only non-career politician in the bunch, and Americans are getting sick and tired of these career politicians who have put us in this situation. We are literally in a catch-22 position, and I'm here to tell you that the body language, this is not really a body language video, this is a commentary on why they're so shocked. What's the envelope about? What is this coded message telling them? And we really don't need to be body language experts to look at these people and say they're shocked. They don't know what the hell's going on. They don't know what to do, fight or flight. And what they're gonna you know what they're gonna do? They're gonna go back and talk to their advisors and the lobbyists. But the problem is that the bankers and the lobbyists also know that they're in an unwinnable situation. So this is going to be a very interesting 2 years coming up to the next election. Okay, so one last thing on Donald Trump before we go down that rabbit hole. And we are going down the rabbit hole today, trust me, be patient. But Donald Trump, like I said, he was not there when they were building up the house of cards in the swamp in Washington, D.C., the Beltway. When they were putting this Ponzi scheme together, Donald Trump was not one of the engineers. But he's there now, and he's not stupid. And Donald Trump knows that if they keep on raising the interest rates, everything's going to fall down that much quicker. And like Donald Trump, like them, he doesn't want to be in the Oval Office. He does not want to be in Washington, D.C. when the whole house of cards comes falling down. So in that respect, he's not stupid. He's like them. He understands that the Federal Reserve is holding all the cards. The Federal Reserve, the banking cartel, is the dealer. And as you know, they've been manipulating the deck for a long time, manipulating the interest rates down. Like I say, we're at a rigged poker game. But today, like I said, we're not going to be going into body language, or we're not going to go into the poker metaphor. We're going to go down that rabbit hole. I'm going to tell you why they were so shocked to see the envelope. So let's do it. Okay, before we crawl down this hole, I want you to think about your neighborhoods, how your neighborhoods have changed since before George Bush and Obama were in office. So as I tell you this story, just remember, or just think about how your neighborhoods have changed. Okay, so after the Obama-Hillary regime, they were bringing in enemy combatants to the country at an alarming rate. And the military intelligence agency became very concerned, to say the least. They had already had to pucker up after China got our ICBM technology. That would be back in the Clinton years, which will lead us to the Clinton Foundation. So there's a lot of dots here. As we go down this rabbit hole, I'm going to skim over a lot of dots. It's going to be your responsibility to connect these dots. And it's going to be your responsibility to follow the money to the banking cartel. But make no mistake about it, all roads lead back to 1913 in the Federal Reserve Act. All roads lead back to John F. Kennedy. All roads lead back to that critical moment when George Bush was being told what to do by the merchant of death, Dick Cheney. I mean, we didn't have enough time to go over the Cheney stare in the last video. And I don't have enough time to go into the merchant of death now, but just look at that stare he's giving Donald Trump. He's staring Trump down. Like I said, he's the merchant of death. And I cannot underestimate his role in this house of cards, because he was telling George Bush what to do, and George Bush took us down that road that changed everything. But since we are limited in time, we must stick to the current events. What is the conversation today? The story is about the envelope, the mysterious envelope. It's nothing more than a metaphor. So many metaphors in this theater that we are watching. Remember, they are all actors. And the people in charge cannot really tell the Americans what's going down, because it would literally scare them half to death. So there has to be metaphors out there. This envelope was a coded message. Who's the only group that can send out a coded message to such powerful people at such a high-profile event? Well, that would only be the 666 gang in the military security complex. So yes, the envelope was a coded message. It is my job to lead you in the right direction to understanding this metaphor. So let's not forget what I just said about the military intelligence agency. They became very concerned about what was happening during the Obama-Hillary regime. They'd also become very, very concerned what happened in the Clinton regime when it came down to China growing in power, our ICBM missile technology, and the Clinton Foundation getting so rich. I mean, are the dots starting to appear? Are you starting to connect the dots? So let's ask ourselves a few rudimentary questions. Do you think it was a coincidence that General Flynn ran the Defense Intelligence Agency, and then he was placed in the new Trump regime? Ask yourself, was that a coincidence? Do you think it was a coincidence that China grew as a major world power and the Clinton Foundation got richer and richer and richer? Do you think that was a coincidence? Do you think it was a coincidence that the nation's security industrial complex gets bigger and bigger and richer, and more suspicious foreign nationals are flooding into the country at the same time? Do you have a gut feeling that this discredited cabal is feeding us horseshit and lies 24/7? You have to ask yourself these questions before we can go any further. Do you feel like the Washington, D.C. swamp is getting richer and richer, and the long-gone middle class that you and I were once part of is getting poorer and poorer? And do you think it's a coincidence that General Flynn will get no jail time in this witch hunt that's going on? So these are the things that are just popping up. At the same time these envelopes were passed out, it's announced that General Flynn will get no jail time. Okay? And it's also announced that there are 6,000 pages of documents that some Clinton Foundation whistleblowers have just came out. This is all coming out on the same day, right around the same time these envelopes came out. The pieces of the puzzle, I hope, are coming together. One final question. What agency has the power to ensure that a cheating Hillary Clinton who rigged the primaries to beat old man Bernie could not and would not win the big one? Who has that kind of power? I tell you, the message was encoded. And after the ceremony Was there a military attaché who would have to explain the context of the message? None of this is of public record. Are we talking about a private invitation to a national security briefing on the Clinton Foundation investigation and General Flynn gets no jail time, basically the exposing of the Clinton Foundation, and does it have national security implications? Hell yeah, it does! I'm talking about the house of cards is falling and damage control is in order. Yes, damage control is really in order here. But not to get too far off the subject, is that crippling arthritis in Hillary Clinton's hands getting worse and worse? And will she simply send a body double to all future events to prevent us from doing analysis like this on her behavior? Well, only time will tell. So how did we get here? How did we get to this point in America? Well, I hate to bring in another game to illustrate how it could have happened, but I must. The game is billiards. And it can be an easy game or an impossible game, and that depends on how good you are. It depends on how you play. So we'll throw in a little billiards metaphor here. You see, when you are playing good in billiards, all the shots are easy and it's smooth sailing. On the flip side, when you are playing bad in billiards, you end up snookered and you have no clear shot. In some cases, you have no shot at all. And that brings us to where we're at today. And sadly, that leads us to our present predicament. Like I said, these actors are not the brightest stars in the sky. They outsourced all our factories. And because they outsourced they sent all our factories to China. And who bankrolled those? Believe it or not, it was the banking cartel, a global banking cartel, led by the Federal Reserve banking cartel, which financed all those factories in China. So as our factories were shut down, our illustrious leaders and our bankers bankrolled China's factories, which has led us to a position where the banks had to create a housing bubble with the help of Congress and the politicians. And they created a housing bubble which busted. And then they had to push a button and literally give themselves trillions of dollars of new, freshly printed fake money to keep the doors open. Not worrying about us, of course. So they printed all the money up. The banks kept their doors open. And to even make matters worse, they manipulated the interest rates down to zero. And now you understand what I'm talking about, the metaphor of billiards. When you're playing badly, you get snookered. And that's where we're at today. They played extremely badly. Our leaders in America played so badly that we are now snookered so badly that we have no shot, we have no factories, we have no middle class, and we wonder what the envelope was about. And to add insult to injury, after destroying our country, they have the audacity to give Donald Trump the evil eye, the stink eye, side-eyeing Donald Trump. They think they're going to pin it all on him. The non-career politician, the outsider. They think that they're going to raise interest rates and they're going to blame it all on Trump. Will they get away with it? I don't know at this point in time. All I know is if they keep on raising interest rates, Donald Trump will look like a buffoon. And maybe that's what I thought their plan was from the beginning. But then I see Donald Trump leaning over and giving them the stare. And I could not help but notice all the comments on the last video where people were saying Donald Trump was leaning forward and it was a sign that he was stressed out. I didn't see that. I didn't see any elevated signs of stress in his posture. I frankly saw Donald Trump trying to send Hillary Clinton a message through eye contact. And we've already established what that was in the last video. You take me down, I'll take you down. That's what I see in this stare. Donald Trump is sending her a message. We all know that back before the election, Hillary had some sort of grand plan that she was going to go up against the reality TV star and she was going to easily beat him. We all know that there was a possibility of an agreement, a handshake deal between Hillary and Trump that, she could easily beat him and she would be the president. Many people think that Donald Trump is playing 4 and 5D chess, and he reneged on the deal and he said, "Hey, I'm not going to lose to you, Hillary. I'm going to be the president." And this is all speculation. But I'll tell you what's not speculation, and that is the Clinton Foundation investigation, which is just in its infancy stages. And we're talking about an investigation that can be ramped up or it can be shut down on a moment's notice. So when Trump leans forward and tries to give Hillary Clinton some eye contact, give her a warning, is this Trump's way of saying, "I'm going all in, Hillary"? I believe that when Donald Trump leaned forward and he looked at Hillary, that was Donald Trump saying, "I'm all in. And I'm going to tell you for a fact, there's no way in hell the Clintons are going to call this all-in bet." That's not speculation. So the game is getting interesting. It's not over yet by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, is Donald Trump overplaying his hand? All I know is this. Normally the people who are with the bankers win. And how do the bankers do business? Well, the bankers, all they have to do is push a button. And they can create $1 trillion out of thin air. But they also use the intelligence community to play out their games. So what we'll do here is I'll throw a bone to all the Trump QAnon supporters, all the Trump supporters, the QAnon freaks. I'll throw you a bone. And now let's speculate and theorize on the mysterious envelope. Could the card have, what could the card have said? Let's have a little fun for a moment. This is what the QAnon people would, have dreams about at night. They open up that card and it says JFK on it. Okay. Or it says the Clinton Foundation investigation. Or what they really have wet dreams about is when they opened up the envelope, it had a big, large, black Q on there. A big black Q on there for QAnon. And that would be for like practical jokes purposes. Okay, I'm just throwing in a little bit of fun there. We all know that it was an encoded message. We know that there's only 2 groups of people who work together who could send that message to such a high-profile place. Again, we've talked about it, the 666 gang or the military security complex. They sent them this message. And it's time to wind this video down. It's been a combination of opinion, theory, speculation, and connecting the dots of the writing on the wall. As we said before, they're acting strong now when they're possibly weak. They are actors. And the banking cartel put all these actors in place. And I'm here to tell you these actors are not all that smart. I tell you, they're not smart enough to understand the Machiavellian games of the bankers, which leads us to this sorry public display of ignorance. I will repeat it because that was the most commented thing on our last video. People were wondering, why are they laughing and carrying on at a European Caucasian American funeral? I mean, this was not New Orleans, and this was not Jesse Jackson laying in the coffin. So I repeat that this is what has led us to this sorry public display of ignorance. That these people they're not the brightest star in the sky. They didn't realize when they were sending our factories to China that they were going to destroy America. Or maybe they did. Maybe they did understand. Yeah, maybe they're just downright evil. And they knew what they were doing all along when they gutted the American middle class, when they shut down our factories, when they printed up fake money and gave it to the bankers and expected us to get on our hands and knees and beg for the breadcrumbs and the snap cards. Maybe they knew exactly what they were doing. Breaking America, busting America, bringing us down to our knees. You take your pick. Either they're ignorant bastards or they're just downright evil. I tell you, it's not a good pick. Thanks to the bankers manipulating and pushing interest rates down to zero to save their own asses. And let's never forget the words of Bush Jr. back when the housing bubble bust in '08. Jr. said, "I know how distasteful this is. It's distasteful, but we must hand over all this money to the bankers so they can keep their doors open." That's what George Bush Jr. said. The sorry thing is, they could care less if you or I keep our doors open. Pathetic.